Hey, man, we're live. Oh, cool. Is none of my audio working? See, I knew I should have tested it.
No, you're fine. It's my audio.
Oh,
Because still had it coming through my monitors, and I was like, "Oh, stop that quick!"
all right. Let's check this out. Hey, Michael, Ian, Mark, Snarky. We got Will Ferrell in the house.
Man, Will, I hate your movies.
uh,
Sorry, that's unpopular opinion. That's a hot take. Steve, I thought you were going to clean up for this live stream.
That is clean, man. You should have seen how bad it was before. Are you saying because I still have only one Gibson back there, so it's filthy?
No, that has nothing to do with it. I am thinking about, so I haven't been doing it, but I'm thinking about swapping up the guitars on the wall so that it's not just a tribute to Gibson every episode.
What's up? Oh, we got David and David. That's
Yes.
a lot of Davids.
David James and David Ross, both two named Davids. So this is really I like that you put all of the title in all caps.
Yeah, earlier I think it was Michael, accused me of stealing from myself. It's a real John Fogerty situation over here. We'll give a couple more minutes. I had this thought, but I think I'm gonna. I had this thought about handling this topic the way that you would handle like 90s AM talk radio, where
nobody's listening.
Well, there. What I was going to say is, if people want to give a hot take, they can jump in.
Oh yeah.
Give their 20 seconds, and then we kick them out, and
GTFO.
I'll take my answer off the line.
Yeah, I'll hang up and listen.
How's your week been, man?
Man, my week has been actually good. It's better than the previous week where I was sick. This week has been pretty solid. I'm getting ready to head to Wichita tomorrow. It's a work conference thing. I'm on the board for a national organization, and it's all about serving small and rural libraries. And so we hold our conference in smaller and rural centers typically. So that's why. Wichita is actually kind of a rad town, which completely goes against my conception of Kansas.
I mean, Kansas doesn't even have the good part of Kansas City, so it's fair.
Right, exactly. But yeah, I actually ended up with a gig while I'm there. I'm going to be playing for a welcome reception, so I got to take a guitar and a small PA, which is great. It's part of why I'm driving. I had to take stuff. Cool. I'm actually doing a session on helping libraries get into podcasting. So I'm actually going to record a live, very short podcast during my session and post it and let them watch me quick edit and post it just to show how easy it is so that libraries can get into doing their own podcasts.
Oh, interesting. I mean, depending on how much you want to do with it, you can like do all that stuff basically. Yeah, you can do it pretty much. I mean, there's even like now there's devices to do it, but I'm classically like, if I'm going to record something, I'm just going to record it into like Audacity.
Yeah.
And then do some very basic, like, a 2-to-1 or like a 3 or 4-to-1 global compression and just call it a day. Maybe like try to like modify the EQ a little, but is it really necessary?
Not totally. And that's the thing is because the stuff they would be doing is super simple for like location, like wherever their public library is. Maybe they could do a podcast about, what's happening in this little town or whatever kind of thing and use it as an outreach opportunity. And I'm doing as simple and affordably as I can for them. Like I think I'm going to actually take my Lewitt mics and I'm going to take the Lewitt Connect 6.
Oh, cool.
So I'm going to show them that these are, like you could do it even cheaper and simpler, and I'll show them that. But I'll show them like for not a lot of money, you can get a rig. They all already have computers.
Yeah.
I'm going to show them how to do it in GarageBand. But they obviously I'm going to mention Audacity. I'm just not going to do Audacity because I'm not as versed in it. So I would have there's a little bit of learning there that I would need to do.
Yeah.
And I
What do
don't
you
have time.
use? Did you say you use GarageBand?
No, I usually use Logic. So
Logic. Okay.
but GarageBand will work just fine for a
Yeah,
podcast.
and the reality is like all of those apps or all of those applications basically, I mean, Audacity is the most bare bones of
Yep.
them without just using like voice recorder. But I think Reaper installed for a minute.
Okay.
Like years ago. I haven't used Reaper in years. And I think there was another one, maybe Crystal.
I don't know that one at all.
I could be misremembering the name. But definitely had a little bit of time with Reaper. Reaper is probably closer to like GarageBand in terms of functionality. Whereas Audacity, I'd say, is like a little more rustic. But the reality is all of these applications do the same thing. It's just a matter of like, it's not even a matter of how they handle like VSTs anymore.
Yeah, because most of them can do it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Ian says, I thought Audacity was in the bad books these days. If there's something going on with them, I don't know about it.
I'm unfamiliar if there's anything that's got them on the outs.
We got Joe and Sassy in the chat. So hello. I need to do something real quick.
Okay, what are you gonna do?
I got to change my glasses because I'm getting that purple reflection.
Yeah, I keep seeing it. And I'm like, it's almost like there's like this weird X-Men thing going over his eyes every now and again. Love it. Yeah, that's the thing, Joe, is like all roads go to the same place. It all comes into what DAW are you comfortable with and finding that and then just rolling with it. So I'm actually quickly sharing the link in some Discord, see if we can get some people in here.
All right. You got any gear stuff you want to hit up?
Oh, I get embarrassed when I talk about gear. I have too much.
All right. I mean,
I do have one. I'm going to
share.
share. Okay, I'm going to share one because I have to share it. This arrived this past week, and yeah.
Oh, what is that?
This is a Mule Mavis. This it is an electric resonator.
Interesting. That's cool.
But yeah, it's super rad. Mini humbucker. I just got through. I've tried a couple of sets of strings to find the gauge that it likes. I've settled on 13 to 56. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a killer guitar. I'm going to take that with me for a couple of the numbers.
So Audacity was purchased.
Oh, you're looking up to see what that is.
By a company called Muse Group, who is the owner of Muse Score and Ultimate Guitar.
Oh, interesting.
But the brand has retained, or the Audacity's remained open source. And I'm not seeing anything about
no drama with that company at all.
Drama with it. I mean, because I know Ultimate Guitar was doing this for a long time, so I'm wondering. I'm not seeing any information on who Muse Group is, but I know like way back in the day, one of the issues with Ultimate Guitar was that they moved all of their servers to Russia in order to dodge copyright. Because tabs, you can either have I think the way the law has been settled out is you can either have chords with lyrics or tabs without lyrics.
Really? But you can't do tabs with lyrics.
With like full lyrics. And so and I know a lot of sites that were doing that like in the early 2000s would just only have chords. And they
Sure.
might have like the first 3 or 4 like 3 or 4 words of a line, but they wouldn't have the full line.
I gotcha.
Um,
Hey, Matt's
Thanks.
Tube of You. Thank
That's
you.
two of you. A little something for the coffee fun. Got my breakfast burrito coffee and my wannabe shredder guitar, so I'm right with the Lord. That's very cool. Thank you. Um, I cracked this guy open. Of course, I bought this a few weeks
Yeah,
ago.
you did.
I finally got this, and I realized, at least with this one, and maybe it's because it's an octave fuzz, though I wasn't really using the octave side with it. Is
Oh.
do you have a go-to fuzz riff?
Do I? It depends on the fuzz. Like, legitimately depends on the fuzz. If I'm playing an octave fuzz, I immediately go to the 12th fret, like E blues pentatonic, like
Mm-hmm.
immediately. If it's a fuzz face, I am probably gonna play a Hendrix riff. And if it is a tone bender, probably gonna play something on the low strings really close to the nut. For some reason, that's what I always play because for me, it's like certain fuzzes give me vibes. Like
Mm-hmm.
Fuzz
Mm-hmm.
Face gives me Hendrix vibes, even though I then have to fight to break out of that. Um, Tone Bender always gives me Zeppelin vibes, so that's just the way it is. And Octave Fuzz always sounds best above the 12th fret. I also picked up an Octave Fuzz recently.
Oh, cool.
This is actually the second time I've bought one of these. I feel
I
bad. Um,
don't. The octave fuzz with a blend is an interesting idea to me. I'm assuming that's blending
yeah,
the octave. Yeah.
Yep, it's a clean octave blend that blends in the octave, but it also sort of brings in the fuzz. So I don't know, it's really wonky, and that's why I bought a second one because I feel like I didn't let myself learn how the controls interact the first time around,
Okay.
and so yeah, I had to have more octave fuzz in my life. The Hornet is on my list. I might buy one live while we're recording. I mean, I'm literally drinking out of a Greer coffee mug.
Nice.
Um, so
I have found when I was messing around with this pedal, and I don't. Maybe I do this for other ones, and maybe it's just because it's like a an E minor pentatonic or whatever. It's a G. It's real simple, 12th fret. I kept wanting to play Are You Gonna Go My Way? Like, just
oh,
that riff, like that thing, and it's like a very stripped down version, but it's really like just like 5 notes
yeah,
in
I
the
used to know that riff. Now that you mention it, I haven't thought about that song in over a decade.
yeah, and I was just like, I don't know how to play that song. I just heard it. Like, I
Oh,
was just like, played it's like the whole joke with, which I think has been mostly debunked at this point. Well, it's been kind of not debunked, but elaborated on, which is the classic like story that the Sweet Child of Mine riff was a warm up exercise. Uh,
oh, yeah, no,
and
that's right. He
I
was
think
playing it on a couch, and he never intended it to be a song,
yeah, I
and
think Slash later elaborated and said like, no, it's not a warm up riff. It's a riff I was doing to warm up. So it's
gotcha.
like it's not like a thing that he would just mess around with all the time. It's just a thing that he happened to be messing around with that day.
Yeah, and
Um,
it may be apocryphal, but he never wanted it to be a song.
yeah,
But
yeah,
Axl heard it and immediately started writing, and Slash was like,
yeah. So I started playing it, and I was like, "Wait, that's something." And then I had to take a step back and like, "Am I accidentally playing Sweet Child of Mine?" And then I was like, "No, no, that's not it. This is Are You Gonna Go My Way?"
"Sweet Child of
Um,
Mine" is my, Marshall amp riff.
hmm. Going back, Snarky wants to know what's the new white
Oh,
guitar
let
behind
me
me.
answer, let me answer, let me answer.
Yeah,
It's an Italia
it
that
is.
that,
It's
Grant from Big Ear sent you.
That's all accurate, and it's not new, and it's also not a guitar, it's a bass.
Well, it's a guitar, it's a bass guitar.
That's fair. Um,
Everything with strings is a guitar, Steve. Pianos are guitars.
I'm trying to figure oh, did you just say pianos or guitars?
Yes, and you
Great.
no, it's great. You completely just deadpanned it. Let's go.
Um, I'm trying to find something. I'm trying to figure out how to get into the subject line here. I guess I'll just give the background. So earlier this week, Josh, JHS, the JHS pedal show, JHS show, whatever they call themselves, JHS show. I guess it's the YouTube is JHS. I don't know. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I don't know
the
why I'm
JHS
elaborating.
show. Everybody knows who Josh is.
They did a interview with John Milnzak. I think I'm getting that name right, from the Namm show. He's the CEO of Namm. And I was there. I watched it I watched the replay with the live chat turned on, and a lot of people, of course, were reacting in real time to a lot of the things he was saying. And I'm going to go ahead and do this right now. I'm going to bring, this is Kyle. Hi, Kyle. How's it going?
What's up, Kyle?
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Do you have any tasty pasta for us this morning?
When is it time to quit the band?
Ooh. Ooh. That's a tough one.
I can't stay for very long. I just wanted to say hello to all my fans and join you, the other bearded fellas. Go Chiefs.
Yeah, they're gonna actually win. How do you lose to the Lions in the opening week? I mean,
I'll tell you how you lose.
The Lions are good.
I'll tell you how to lose the Lions. You don't pay Chris Jones. That's how you lose the Lions
this year.
Also, well, I think it's because Travis Kelce's dating Taylor Swift. That's why
not
they
yet.
lost.
Not yet. He's trying though. He is trying hard.
That's big news for people around Kansas City for sure.
Yeah,
but
anything that gets Taylor in town more often.
Yeah, that concert was huge here. So,
yeah, I want to go, but I also don't want to go to an arena show. There's nothing in me that wants to go to any arena show. Doesn't matter who it is.
I'm going to Queens of the Stone Age this week.
Matt's Tube of You has the answer when you've gone 3 practices in a row and you're the one buying the beer, and the practices are at your house.
Yep, nope, that's it. Leave the band. Actually, tell the band to leave you at that point because you are the band.
I tried to get the questions from when I made the copy pasta post like I was Ryan getting questions for the podcast because people gave sincere answers because the Facebook group sees those posts and they just go for it. But
I think we did take one topic for our recording session.
You're welcome.
And we did take one topic from that, or at least we heavily considered it.
It's all in good fun for the Facebook group. Like I'm just having fun. When it's dead, I post nonsense. When, it gets fun attention, it just wants me to make me post more, but
yeah,
it's all in good fun.
Do you want to generate fun over in the 40 Watt podcast group as well? Because that place is dead. I don't know how to grow a Facebook group.
I thought I was in that group.
You might be. Feel free to copy pasta over there.
I will. I have a what's new gear though.
What you got?
It's just a recommendation. There's this group called Funny Little Boxes or something. It's from the UK. I think it's a guy that makes small batch stuff, but he made a pedal called the Skeleton Key, and it's like licensed art from the guy that does the album art for Queens of the Stone Age.
Oh yeah,
it's really cool. It's in pre-order right now, but it's supposed to be like a simplified Vox in a box, I'm guessing. The demo, there's only one demo that I found so far. I don't think anybody has it yet, but it sounds cool. And it's like, if you're a fan, it's the same guy that does the artwork, and even the like the volume, treble, and gain, it's in the script that he uses for the liner notes and stuff.
So that's a nice touch. See, I noticed that it was an odd font, but now I know why. I'm actually not as up on Queens of the Stone Age, and I really should fix that. It's weird.
Well, when
this
Josh kicked that
this
camera
is the
lady,
company that made the Pearl Jam pedal, the 1991.
Yeah, the 10, like the Marshall in a box pedal. Yeah. So it's pretty cool.
I've heard Joe Branton talk about this company before. Like, he talks about all things UK. So
yeah, I had to pay like $30 shipping for it. So I hope it's good.
I do too. You had to get back with us, live consultant. There you go.
All right. Well, I'm going to leave you two fellas to it. I got to go, but
all right.
Have a nice day.
Kyle, thanks for joining us.
See ya.
Bye.
All right. So, Josh Scott interviews the CEO of Namm. Of
Yes.
course, I bounced around. You actually suggested this title. I think originally you suggested it as "Does JHS deserve Namm?" I changed it to "Does Namm deserve JHS?" But I thought so. I like I said, I was watching it with the live chat running and seeing people react in real time, and I just thought like it was a bloodbath.
It was a poop show in the chat, man.
The chat was just like everything. This guy could say nothing, absolutely nothing right, and everyone's reacting as it happens. So no, there's zero reflection. It's just like
so I have a hot take on that, and I really want to go ahead and get this one out because I was watching it again this morning for the second time, and I was paying more attention to the chat. Like, dude, I've got like 3 pages of notes.
Oh my gosh.
I took notes because I wanted to be sure to mention a few things. But the main thing I saw in the chat was people just it was like 4 or 5 particular people roasting this guy, and I want to say this up front. Average guitar player, Namm is not for you. That's just it. Namm is not your show. Go to the Dallas Guitar Show. Go to, one of these big guitar shows that are meant for players buying gear, looking for things, fun stuff like that. Namm is not for the average player. And therefore, expecting Namm to cater to the average player is asinine.
Right. So there's a few different things in there. I actually went back through the comments, not the live stream comments, but like the actual, just the actual comments, not the like I said, not the real time.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I agree, and I think like the question, and I kind of want to open this up maybe a little later. But the question that I put on, because Ryan and I talked about this very briefly, like 5 or 10 minutes on the podcast that comes out tomorrow. But the question that I have for the general public, the general listening audience is, for all of these companies, like the thing that Josh hit on, and the thing that the guy, one of the problems that I think John Milnzak brought on him, kind of on himself, and somebody mentioned that one of the comments I saw that was funny was, this guy has at least 2 MBAs.
Oh yeah. It's true. He does business speak.
He kept so he's already talking in a way that turns off a lot of the group. Hey Jason.
Yo, what's up, Jason?
We actually have 2 Matts. We got Matt's Tube of You and Matt Campbell Music. So shout out to both y'all. But so that was already a turnoff for a lot of people, and he kept talking about 5Xers, and I don't feel like he ever really clarified what a 5Xer is.
He did at one point. He did at one point, and the point was that he calls them 5Xers, and what they want is they want the value of exhibiting at NAMM to be a 5 times proposition. Yeah, they want to return to you. And so he talked about it at one point, because he even said something like 10X or 20X. But he did explain it at one point, but it was very quick in an hour-long interview. So
yeah, and I think there's something to that, but the reality is when Josh is talking about spending $50K for a large booth,
yes,
expecting that like you are going to bring in enough
$250,000
influencers, like because the big business, and I'll come back to this in a minute. The big business, of course, in theory, is your connections with retailers. But I'm very not articulate this morning, unfortunately.
It's okay.
But the reality is like a lot of those influencers connections, like getting a 5X out of a single influencer or even a handful of influencers is tricky.
Yeah.
So like I said, I screenshot some comments. This is one of them. This is actually exactly on this.
So while you're pulling, pulling that up, let me mention a little bit on that 5X thing. Oh, of course, it
it's
pixelates it where it's real hard to read. There you go. Look at that. I will mention this though, on that 5X, because you're not going to get that 5X of your $50,000 investment on one person, period.
Sure.
The goal is the entire show. And so the way I interpreted it is, okay, if I stop and I talk to this, because we're both in the influencer space, let's talk about influencers. If you stop and talk to influencer for 15 minutes, you've got to, there's some business math here, y'all. I did attend a school for an MBA, so I'll talk a little MBA as well. The idea is convert that time you spent into the value of that time to you as a business, and then you should get 5 times whatever that is.
Right.
Now it's a very cold way and calculated way of thinking things. Okay, 20 minutes of my time with my very small business translates into, say, $200 worth of lost revenue time, right? I'm arbitrary, numbers are arbitrary. Well, then that 20 minutes I stopped to talk to this person should turn around and generate $1,000 worth of business for my business.
Yeah. So this was one of the comments. This user says the influencer angle seems meh. Like, what music industry influencers don't know Josh and JHS? So I think that was kind of like a misunderstanding. Obviously all the influencers do know Josh and JHS. I think the bigger point is that, like, if Ryan goes to, like, the people who watch Ryan and his pedal demos are a different group of people who watch Rhett. There's a different group of people who watch Ola England or whatever,
or like me, all tens
or
of those
you
people.
And I'm just, so you got kind of your alt rock people who watch Ryan, your blues people who are going to watch folks like you and Rhett, your metal people are going to watch your Glens and your Hennings and whatever, and you have these different people. So it's not about like we all sort of generally know who Josh is and know about JHS. He says, what influencers can now, I mean, this is a bigger question, is she says, what influencers can he not get online or in everyday business life? Like, that is a real thing. That's the problem with doing this kind of like a Namm influencer experience,
right?
Is Josh can, JHS can send, when they send an email blast, I'm sure they're sending it. We get an email, I don't know, once every couple months from, actually, I think he was also on the live stream, from a different Josh at JHS who does their like A&R, PR, A&R marketing. I'm not sure which one, but that general space, basically saying like, hey, Ryan, are you interested in covering this? So they have contacts for at least I would assume most of the content creators they want to work with. And the ones that they're not working with, that they want to work with, I'm sure Josh, if they want to work with, I don't know, say they want to work with Jay Leonard J and they don't know how to get a hold of him. He's actually probably not that hard to get a hold of. Let's say they don't know how. There's probably 5 to 10 creators in their stable that they already work with that they can say, hey, can anyone hook us up with Jay Leonard J? We really want to work with them. We have a compressor coming out. We need Jay Leonard J.
Right, exactly. Well, so here's my big thing about this comment in particular. They're 100% right. Josh Scott does not need Namm.
Yeah.
He doesn't need Namm. But say Mark Turley over at Summer School Effects, he kind of needs Namm's, because people don't know who he is yet. I use Mark as a great example because I've met Mark recently. He's going to be on the podcast here soon. He makes really cool effects, but he's a small company still trying to build a name. You got someone like Zach at Mythos who went to Namm in April, not exhibiting, just went, and he decided, you know what, I actually should exhibit at Namm, and he's going to exhibit in Namm in January. He actually saw value in it by going to it, so he's going to do his booth, the whole 9 yards. But someone like Josh, Josh has built himself as the cornerstone of the pedal industry right now. He's one of the cornerstones, and that's great because we need that. It's sort of like a rallying place. But to judge the need for every pedal company for Namm by using Josh Scott as the example is that's just
well, I mean, that's difficult, and that was definitely a thing happening in the chat a lot.
Yep.
Josh did respond to this and says, "I'm not really buying the influencer thing. It's not a good place for content. I think they do have to like really modify and very carefully modify it." Says if they have designated areas for it, then they're removed from what's going on, and most influencers have their own spaces already set up. Like, for example, your room, my room, Ryan's garage, whatever. Like, these are all spaces that were very well. I'm not comfortable working in here, but the idea is that like creators have a space that they're comfortable working in. And a lot of creators, like if you watch a creator and you notice that when they're talking in their video, there's a lot of like cuts, they are probably not the ideal influencer to take to Namm.
Yeah.
Because they might not be good on the fly. They might not be good with just an iPhone. And one of the things that Josh talked about, which is also kind of within this space. Well, one thing, Namm has a media center, and the only thing I've ever used it for is to get coffee. I did sit in on because Emily is a lot better at utilizing it. So I have jumped on the Get Offset podcast when they record there, but Ryan and I have never utilized that space. We've always just, if we're going to record a podcast, we're going to do it back at the hotel.
I think all of us could take some notes from Emily.
Yeah.
Or like at Summer Namm, we recorded it at the house with like 7 people. It's unlistenable, y'all. We knew that. Yeah. We knew going in it was going to be unlistenable.
There is a comment from Basil Tiffany. I do want to get back to that one.
Okay,
I don't want to leave that unacknowledged.
Before that, mention the one below Basil Tiffany. What are you saying, Snarky? What are you saying?
What? Oh, this one that I spend a lot of time because I spend a lot of time talking to him.
I'm right here, Snarky. I'm right here.
So I think you kind of brought up a thing too, and this was an angle I thought was interesting, and I had not thought about, and I'll probably have to blow this up again. I will have to blow it up again. But this was from Loki over at Polypedals, and he says one point I didn't hear much about is the usefulness for manufacturers outside the USA. So a company like JHS, Earthquaker, like within reason, like on any given Wednesday, on any given Wednesday, Matt Lewis says Joshua is the mediator. Josh is Jay Scott when they sign for things in the comments. So I guess Joshua was the one
who responded,
the mediator who responded. Yeah. So that's good to know. So one thing is like on any given Wednesday, if there's a trade show or a guitar show anywhere in the United States, Joel from Chase Bliss can wake up on a Wednesday and go like, you know what? I'm gonna drive to Seattle or Austin or whatever today and tomorrow and Friday because I, for whatever reason, have this wild hair up my ass that I need to be at this guitar show.
Right. Or couple of weeks ago, I was at Guitar Summit, and they had the boutique pedal showcase at CME the same weekend. Yeah. And so a ton of pedal makers were there because they could get there. Zach from Mythos, I was hung out with him the night before. He drove up from Nashville. It's a 2-day, 3-day, if you decide you want to sleep the day before and the day after, trip, and it's easy. But got a great point here. Someone, a company from the UK or Japan or Australia or New Zealand, even though their biggest market is the US. For the products they're making, the U.S. is one of the predominant markets for guitar, guitars and guitar gear. They need to hit this market. If they can get to one big NAMM show where they get to meet and talk to and make all the connections they need in one trip, that's a lot cheaper than trying to come and go to Dallas Guitar Show, the Indianapolis Guitar Show, the whatever guitar show.
Yeah. So, let's see. Do I want to do any other comments right now?
Well, I've got a couple of things that I noted from the video that are in this vein. So let's talk about that.
Sure.
So one of the things, because Michael Freer mentioned it in the comments here, the everyday guitarist cannot get NAMM tickets easily. It takes some work.
Yeah. Well, I think that was a response to this, like,
okay.
where Basil Tiffany says, these are some pretty wild generalizations. Namm isn't for the everyday guitarist, and the everyday guitarist gets tickets. So, officially, and this was brought up in the interview, a lot of people, and I don't know how it worked.
Yeah.
I have been told by the general guitar player that that Summer Namm had public, like every Sunday was public day, but Namm denies this.
Yeah, Namm says that is not the case.
So I don't know what's true.
So what they say is that there were just too many allotments of tickets being given to manufacturers. So that was the stance they took in the video. They were like, we are looking at the number of passes we are giving to manufacturers. We want to make sure they have enough passes so that their staff and their employees can come to the show. But what they don't want, and he used the word bro a lot, so I think he's very tech bro. But he said, what we didn't want is a bunch of people on Saturday. Hey, I've got 40 passes still to the Namm show. Anybody want to show up? You know what? Right. And so I know that even I had, Basil, and they said they did a public show 1 year, and all of the notes and the feedback said it was
72 or something.
Yeah, I thought it was 78, but that also tracks that I would get 72 mixed up with 78. My brain does this add to 10 thing in confusion.
It was in the 70s, and they did it once.
And it was a nightmare, apparently. Everyone said it was terrible. So they don't do it, and apparently they're cracking down on that even more because they are a trade show, not a public show.
Yeah.
They're meant for manufacturers or people in the industry.
Yeah. Having listened in on Josh's thoughts on Namm in the past, if Namm is turned into a public show, Josh Scott there is a less than 0 chance that Josh Scott will ever go back if it is a public show.
Yeah.
And this goes back kind of to like that 5X thing again, like the general public. I don't think I say general public, the guitar playing public. We all love our instruments. We're all very passionate about, Gibson versus Fender, Taylor versus Martin, all this stuff, right? We're all very passionate about this stuff. And so we want to go to these things because we're passionate about seeing the new thing. But the reality is this, that 5X thing, you don't want to hear about how you aren't valuable.
Yeah.
And you have to have enough consumer involvement. You have to make that connection between Namm and the consumer somehow, and probably not only through the retailer. But this is the reality of it, is if I'm a retailer, I'm a buyer for a mid-size, even a big guitar store. Like say I'm a buyer for Guitar Center. Maybe not the best example. Say Guitar Center is in good financial health. Lots of assumptions here, but
I need to comment on something. If you could highlight Andrew Collins's comment. So Andrew, that's actually incorrect. So far, Fender is the only company who has said they are not going back to Namm. And right now, I'm not sure that Fender is the arbiter of, I don't know that them not going to Namm right now is as much related to not thinking it's valuable as much as it is a financial decision for them, because that's all I'm going to say. I'm just going to leave that there.
Well, and
Gibson has already said they're going back. Taylor is on the board for Namm, so they're going to be there. I'm pretty sure Martin and PRS are both going to be there. So that's your 5 big ones right there. 4 out of your 5 are going to be there.
I think, and part of the Fender's argument I kind of get anyways, they have a factory like an hour and a half east of where Namm is held. So they could just tell everybody in town for Namm, hey, if you want to talk to us, this is where we are.
Right. They're in town. They can make the hike, or heck, they could just come into town and sit in a coffee shop near the center and meet with people.
Yeah. Robert mentions like maybe Pitbull is a good example. I like Pitbull. I don't know if they're a good example. I'm thinking like big budget. Like I'm thinking like maybe smaller than Guitar Center, but enough where like basically my boss says, I need you to spend $500,000 at Namm.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to Namm. Who's the most popular companies at Namm? Say everybody's back, and I'm waiting on JHS, and I'm ready to write JHS $100,000 check. But I can't get a freaking word in with Josh or his sales team because they're inundated with a bunch of tire kickers. I'm just going to, all right, well, I'm going to go check out Earthquaker. I'm going to go check out Wampler. I'm going to go check out Keeley. By the time I circle back, I'm like, well, I already spent, $150,000, $200,000 on these other pedal builders. I don't have a pedal budget anymore because Fender's going to eat up $100K. Gibson's going to eat up $100K. So there's $200K. So that's that.
So Andrew, that's
putting up for Fender is selling direct.
Yes.
There's something to that too. I think Fender's doing some interesting things. Fender reaches out to content creators when it's convenient for them. I can I don't know exactly. Actually, I do kind of know exactly what it is. We have some work coming up with Fender.
Oh, that's good. That's good news.
So Fender's reached out to us at least for one of their upcoming product launches. Maybe more than one. I'm not sure.
I want to mention here a thing that we sort of touched on, and it's the whole individual guitarist versus company versus retailer. Here's the deal. Namm has a responsibility to their stakeholders, and their stakeholders are not the players, y'all. Their stakeholders are manufacturers and retailers. And that's why they don't want to sell on the floor, by the way. I think this was the greatest point he made in the entire video. You can ignore the rest of it, because this is a big deal to people. He talked about, well, if it becomes sales on the floor, it just becomes a big flea market.
Yeah.
And the reason they don't is because what they're doing at that point, if it becomes live sales, manufacturers to players on the floor, you are completely negating the retailer and the value of Namm to the retailer. And now they don't have a reason to go, and you're cutting out one of your biggest stakeholders.
Yeah. Snarky left this comment. This is a thing I mentioned back in back in April or early May. He says we may see smaller builders filling the spaces left by the big boys. Get some eyeballs. And I think that's, like you said, Mythos. If JHS doesn't come back, if Earthquaker doesn't come back, Mythos is actually like the perfect brand if they wanted to go a little bigger, which I don't know what their budget is. I'm not saying, I can't speculate on that. They could get a lot of eyes on them, especially let's think about who's involved there. You have Mythos set up, and they schedule for an hour each day a Rhett Shull tone clinic.
Yep.
You're going to get a lot of eyes on that. That's going to get a lot of attention from folks watching online, this, that, whatever. That's going to generate that. That's actually that's exactly 5X content.
That's exactly it. No, that's 100%
5X content.
I think Mythos will have little trouble getting 5 times the return on their investment because of the size of their company and the connections they have. They'll be able to get the right eyeballs in a place like Namm.
Yeah, there's certainly companies that don't benefit from it. Here's a comment that, just shifting slightly, that I screenshot that I thought this was interesting for a couple different reasons. This one is, would JHS be open to a consumer product show for musicians and content creators? The Scott Wampler guitar pedal extravaganza, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Rupp Arena, Lexington, Kentucky. Get your pictures taken with Belle and Joshua from the JHS show. Fun for the whole family. Sounds fun to me. Again, I've been in conversations with Josh, so I know that he will not go for this. Or at least I would not expect him to ever go for something like this. But the other thing that I thought was interesting is that they call it the Scott Wampler guitar pedal extravaganza. And it's interesting to me how Josh Scott it's just interesting to me how everyone has their perception of who are the big dogs in the guitar pedal business. So that kind of cracked me up. But I think people have talked about doing stuff like this in the past. Whether they wanted to, a couple years ago, maybe 3 years ago, there was a push by I think they're called Lyman Guitars. They're a South Carolina brand. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They are partnered with Lyman Guitars. They're partnered with, it is Lyman Guitar. They're in South Carolina. They're in Lyman, South Carolina. They're partnered frequently with Westminster Effects. And they were trying to do a Southeast Gear Fest, whatever. So I forget what they want to call it. Southwest Guitar or Southeast Guitar Show, probably in Lyman, because I think it would have been like at the Lyman Guitars showroom kind of a thing. And they had some people. It was all people who were like kind of pissed about Namm. Honestly, like I think it was. It felt like a little bit of a bad faith move, in my opinion. I'm sure the people who were involved in it wouldn't call it that. And it just didn't take off. And actually, both of those companies I saw at the last Namm. So for these guys are real. Want to be kind of aggressive about it, but then they when shit hits the fan, they showed up at Namm. Andrew Collins says the big dogs are Fender, PRS, Taylor, and Martin. So Taylor had a booth. Martin had a huge booth last year. Taylor had only a business presence, but I could see them coming back bigger with a full show.
Yeah, especially with them being on the board. So obviously, no Fender, no Gibson.
Yeah, I think like you said, there are a lot of rumors that Gibson is coming back. I don't know if that's confirmed.
No, I don't think it's been publicly confirmed, but people, I'm the second degree from the information, but it seems like they're coming back this year.
PRS, I don't have any insight there. I can tell you, I don't know if I would. I think for American companies, maybe PRS is there, but a brand that always has a big presence has had a big presence at Namm every year is Ernie Ball Music Man. And Ibanez. Ibanez has a huge booth.
Yeah, those two are massive.
So, so I would put them, if Fender, PRS, Gibson are 1, 2, and 3. I think you have to talk about Music Man and Ibanez as being 4 and 5. And if you're going to have, if Gibson comes back, now you've got what? Number 2,
6
number 4,
7?
Number 5, something like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's potentially most of the. I mean, we'll see. Reverend does a decent booth too. Reverend does a decent booth. They're kind of interesting because they actually don't do a booth. They do this like weird floating guitar stand. It's just kind of in the middle of it's next to the bathroom. It gets them a lot of traffic.
So I want to mention this as before we get too far away from it, the whole individuals going to Namm. I want to come back to that because something I think that's very, very smart for Namm to do is the individual memberships. And even Josh said in the video when they said if they would eliminate the casual guitarist, the public just being able to come in, it would make the time more valuable for them to be at the show. Josh himself said it. Because it would mean that he knows that the person he's talking to has a much higher likelihood of being a growth potential for them.
Right.
And I know this is super cold. These are super cold business terms, but it's because this what a trade show is. It's about growing business. That's the whole point. And so the individual membership, whereas like, for example, when I went to Namm in 2021 for the summer show, I didn't pay a dime. It didn't cost me anything because I went as media for the podcast. But now, based on what I've been looking at, I haven't actually emailed anyone at Namm yet, but it looks like I need to actually pay for an individual membership, which is not a big deal to me. It's $150. I'll pay $150 to be an individual member of Namm, and it comes with some extra perks more than just getting a badge. There's like access to some stuff through Namm as a membership. So my hope is that is a multi-fold change. So the Sorry, I was laughing at Jabroon. Mr. So it's a multifold change because now those coming just as media on their own, those coming as influencers on their own, they need to buy and pay in to the organization. I'm hoping that means, this is where I hope, it's going to change the demographic of the people there for the manufacturers and retailers to better benefit them. And it also means that's another revenue generator. So maybe Namm doesn't have to jack up the prices in the face of all the rising costs of everything for the retailers and for the manufacturers to get there.
This comment I thought was interesting. From it says, it will not kill the industry. That's just stupid. Industries are consumer driven, not trade show driven. It will kill Namm. He can't let it happen because his company, he kind of like plays this whole like, well, he's the CEO of Namm. His livelihood relies on this. He was like high up in some other music company before, so
Personas.
I'm sure, was it Personas?
He was with Personas,
which is Fender. So, and then he says on the one side, yes, because I work for mom and pop. And someone else mentioned before that their local mom and pop hasn't gone to Namm for years. Maybe their inventory hasn't changed in years. I don't know. Do they still get the hot stuff?
My local mom and pop goes as often as they can, and they're the tiny little store. They're a top 100 Namm retailer.
And again, this person says, however, the continued success of JHS says otherwise. Sure. But JHS, like you said, they're a very established brand at this point. They only stopped going to Namm after COVID.
People have to stop using the exception as the definition.
Yeah.
Now JHS is the exception.
Now there is an angle here. The elimination of the money suck that Namm appears to be would mean that companies need to find better ways to market to the retailers, especially the mom and pops that are still out there. So it's like, how do you find those mom and pops? It's probably a lot harder for an individual company to go to, you're again, like thinking if you're even at your JHS, you want to sell guitar pedals in Fort Lauderdale.
Right.
What do? Go on Google Maps and just Google music stores and then make phone calls to, like, what is this, the 1970s? Give me a Fort Lauderdale Yellow Pages and let's phone call. And then this other person replies and says Namm is more than a trade show, which is a thing I think we often forget. It's a not-for-profit. It's a foundation. They're probably doing a lot of like political lobbying type of stuff on the side, So John Milnzak, he talked about Namm being actually the Namm show, that they don't make money on it. They actually usually
lose money
on it.
Yeah. $15 million is what it costs them to put on the Namm show.
Which is why they I think they're kind of moving to this individual membership thing. But there are all of these things, and it's like, so John will lose his paycheck. Okay, like that sucks if Namm goes under. But there is a pretty big music education program that comes along with it. So there might be that. And Andrew does bring up, like, this is a general cost of living issue.
Yes.
It's not just the show. Like Josh is talking about $50K for like a big booth. But the other thing that's hard with Namm is like being in Anaheim, which is the traditional location. Namm, I believe, I know the Namm Museum is in Carlsbad, which is just north of San Diego.
Okay.
I think Namm is actually headquartered in LA somewhere.
That tracks.
So it's an ideal location for them. But the reality is, and again, like, you can't compare this for everybody. For somebody like Summer School, like Mark Turley, I would guess that Namm probably costs somewhere around $1,000 to $2,000 for where he was set up for the booth, plus another probably $1,500, $2,000 for lodging and all that. So $4,000 is money. I'm not saying that that's not money,
right? But in the grand scheme of things, for a trade show, even me. So I want to mention, because so there's a couple of things here. Ian Johnston asked the question, just one down. Do old school sales reps that travel the country and cold call companies not exist anymore? So as someone who works in an administrative role in an organization, I actually got so tired of cold calls that I have a rule that I do not buy anything from a cold call. I need you to email me and I will get back to you if I want what you have. I'm not going to buy something because I get tired of people calling me. They want me to buy their product all the time. And I'll tell them that, hey, I don't buy anything from a cold call. I need you to email me. They're like, well, okay, that's great. I'll email you let me tell you this. And they just keep going. I've had to hang up on so many of them.
Yeah.
It's such a bad way to do business. Also, I'm going to get super general here. Millennials have moved into the workforce almost entirely now as a generation, and millennials this is a large generation, don't like talking on the phone.
Nope.
They want to talk to you in person or they want to text. You need email, text messaging, or you need to talk in person. They don't like talking on the phone. So, and like my local store, the guy who had run it forever has retired, and one of the guys who's my age bought out his share and is now the owner of that store. Millennials are running a lot of music stores now. They don't want the cold call. They're not going to want that at all. So
I'm going to pull back a little bit of a curtain here. And then I think I'm going to post the link in the chat, and I'm going to say if anyone in the chat has a take on this that they want to jump on a camera and share, we'll give you the floor for 15, 20, 30 seconds. Get your piece out.
I'll set a stopwatch.
And then we'll run a timer. But I wanted to show this because this is why Ryan didn't want to talk about this topic. These are the last 4 JHS live streams. Of course, this one over here that Ask Me Anything, 23K views. That was 2 weeks ago. 23K views. I took the screenshot last night. The new mods for JHS, 19K views. That was after 24 hours. After 48 hours, the rarest vintage pedal finds of 2023 had 18K views. And this one, The Future of Namm, only has 11K views.
Yeah.
So a very small segment, I think, of the guitar playing population really cares about this. But it seemed kind of like based on this, the general population just doesn't care, which actually is honestly is encouraging to me. Because like we've kind of said, like you shouldn't care about being there.
Oh, Ian, the people walking in and wanting to sell stuff, that drives me crazier than anything. I have this one particular company that every time the rep is in the area, he'll just show up. And one day he literally walked in as I was having a product installed from one of his competitors because he didn't get to me the way that I would normally have bought that product. So he got to walk in and watch me buying from another competitor.
Yeah. So I threw up the link in the chat. The question I have, if anyone wants to jump in, is if you want to come to NAMM, I'm not asking the question, why do you want to come to NAMM? I want to ask the question, why should JHS want you to come to their booth? Why should NAMM want you to come to their show?
Right.
Again, I know that sounds cold. I want to hang out with people in general. Like, I think that's fun. And if no one wants to jump on, that's cool too. I want to hang out with people in general. I that's a good time. But I'm not trying to close, deal 5-figure, 6-figure, 7-figure deals.
Right.
And I agree. This is my take in totality about the interview. I think John Milzak said all of the right things for retailers and for manufacturers.
Yep.
And unfortunately, because the goal for manufacturers and retailers are not necessarily congruent with consumers, it means he said a lot of wrong things to consumers.
Yep. I really appreciate it. So Tom Cram, DoD Digitech,
he was in the chat a lot. Yeah,
he was. And one of the things he said was, there are already a lot of ways to reach the customer. NAMM doesn't need to be one of them.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. And we obviously put a ton of emphasis on Namm as people into gear. We need to remember that all of you watching this chat right now, everyone who watches this in the future, the people who are on YouTube looking at videos and demos and finding out about stuff, y'all are in the minority of an already niche group.
Yeah.
There's not nearly as many of us as we think there are. The majority of guitarists don't give a shit about the newest Namm releases. They don't. They're going to walk into their local mom and pop. They're going to buy a tube screamer off the shelf. They're going to, here in Mississippi, they're going to play it into a PV Classic 20, and they're going to call it a day. And they're going to go play their weekend gigs because that's what they're doing. They're playing. We are the outliers here, and to expect an organization like Namm, which, by the way, guitarists are not the only people at Namm. That's another thing that's lost in the translation, is that Namm isn't here just for guitar players. So we to expect them to cater to us as the exception is, guys, we're not always the protagonist.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I did want to hit on that was something that was mentioned. Well, one, going back to the influencer space thing, like I said, the media center exists. I only go there for coffee. I don't think I don't know how an influencer space would work. I don't understand it. Basil Tiffany says, I think social media is part of the problem. Perhaps better documenting Namm online would be a solution. Make me feel like I went. Most coverage of Namm is pretty bad. The reality is, and so Ryan and I have been trying to figure out, like, how do we monetize Namm? And we have some ideas, because the reality is that there's a handful of companies. Premier Guitar is Premier Guitar is probably, I don't want to say they're the biggest abuser, but they do it. Anderton's certainly has done it, where they just basically go around to like every freaking booth, and they're filming in every freaking booth, which is fine. Like, that's what they want to do, but then that's also why we don't do it. The Namm recording environment is really bad.
That's where I was going to go.
It's
I
not
hate
conducive,
Namm
and it's a very specific skill set. Moving to an influencer space, I think also that they kind of talked about. I agree with Joshua. It means now you have to set up meetings, right? So maybe if you know, like, you're gonna be with you have a specific content creator that you know you're going to be there, maybe you can plan ahead of time. But the reality is like, if it's a big surprise that when Jared Dines walks up to your booth and says, hey man, I really want to try out your pedals, and now you're scrambling to try to figure out how to, like, oh, when can I set up a 45-minute film time with Jared Dines over in the creator space,
right,
or whatever, and all this stuff, and now you're like, oh, can I shift these business meetings around? And let's be honest, we all lose track of time in Namm. So when you have a meeting, at least half of the meetings that you set with people, you are either they're going to show up late, or you're going to show up late because you got caught up with something else and you lost track of time, or the meeting that you had before that started late and you can't cut that one short because that one's about writing checks, So there's different things like that. So Mark Bruin, I mean, this is true.
Yeah,
Ryan made it work with the portable rig.
Did he do that at Namm this past April? Did he do the portable rig?
He did it for like a couple things, but the reality is like, this last Namm, we kind of focused on doing stupid shit.
Yeah, and so he did it.
Our most popular video from the last Namm was finding every surf guitar at Namm.
Yeah, which was fun. And so in 2021, I hung out with Ryan a bunch at Summer Namm, and he did a lot of filming with this portable rig, but that's because nobody was there.
Yeah,
and it was quiet.
And the reality is, for us, like, we've been talking about how retailers making money on this stuff. I'm looking at 60 Cycle Hunt Namm. Let's see if I filter this by upload date. So that should give us the newest first. He filmed with Mel in the Namm parking garage. He filmed around the Cream booth.
When a parking garage is quieter than the
filmed
NAMM.
finding all the surf guitars, and that's it. We only made 3 videos this last NAMM.
Yeah.
So that's it. I love this. David Ross Musical Instruments. I want to go to the NAMM show, but only buy a 1 foot by 1 foot space and stand there with my pedals and a vendor tray for 12 hours. Like he's selling hot dogs.
David, please do that. I don't think you can buy a 1 by 1 space, but please try to do that.
I'm trying to figure out what this looks like. David Kiker says, wouldn't it be better if every booth was set up and then televised with each booth having a 10-minute window to showcase the products? This is actually another interesting point. A lot of these builders, if you gave them 10 minutes to talk, they're going to talk for about 45 seconds, and then you're going to want to blow your brains out.
Yep.
We're talking about like very intelligent people, but folks like Josh, folks like Brian, they are folks like Jamie and Julie over Earthquaker. They're the unicorns.
Yeah. So
Joel and Colt are really good at talking about their products, like some of the bigger ones, but a lot of these smaller brands. When we did, I think it was, I forget what year it was, but when the year that we did the Delicious Audio, we did all the filming for them. That was rough, because you have a lot of people, and they come over, there's a misunderstanding. They come over and they say, oh, so you're going to demo our pedal for us? And they go, no, we're going to film you demoing your pedal.
Yeah.
You talking about it. And people just, some of those manufacturers, as soon as you told them that you could see them like, oh, I'm going to have to talk and I'm going to have to be on camera. So it's tough. It's a tough thing to do.
As someone whose entire presence in this space is interviewing, or actually I like to call them conversations more than interviews, but I will tell you that I have some episodes that I've gotten comments, sometimes on YouTube, sometimes not, sometimes in reviews. Incidentally, if you listen to 40 Watt Podcast, please go leave me a review. I could use some new reviews. It's been a while. So some makers are just not talkers. They're just not. And so I have some episodes where I've gotten comments like, it sure would be nice if he'd let the guests speak. Y'all, I'm not actively not letting them speak. They're just not speaking, and I'm trying to pull things out of them.
So there's things like that. Mark brings up, and I Ryan's addressed this before. It's just work, and it's work, and it can be a channel boost, but it's also it's just a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And I think the 1 year it was actually really worth it was the year that we lined up like 4 or 5 sponsors before we went.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool. But I think that's the tough thing is then that's legwork in front of that. Maybe it'll come back. I don't know. Maybe I know Ryan in a recent video was lamenting that he feels like his views are down. I don't know if that's an end of summer back to school.
He's not the only one.
Or what.
And I don't speak for me because my views are always down because YouTube is not my main thing. My main thing is audio podcast. But I've heard that from basically every YouTuber that views are down. I think it's following the trend of people not being as able to get into new guitars because of finances or whatever. So people aren't looking at guitar content nearly as much.
No, that's fair. One idea I have, and here's my idea for NAMM. It was sort of brought up because Josh was complaining about the drums.
Yeah, he was.
And on the one hand, the problem is like this kind of puts it, and Michael Freer again, like what we talked about before. We're just talking about a portion of what NAMM's about, karaoke, weird stuff in the basement. So this goes into what I'm thinking. So the basement hasn't existed for the last 2 NAMMs.
Yeah.
Here is my potential. This would solve some of the problems. Not all of the problems, but I think this could solve some of the problems. Make the basement a quiet zone. No amps.
Yeah.
Hey, it's an all headphone zone I don't know if that, you can't do anything about the fact that you're still going to have, a few thousand people in this space, and so, excuse me, so you're going to have all these competing voices in the space, but
I know some of these comments. I'm like, I'm trying.
I just saw
laugh.
this. You should have said that you're going to work the saw.
Yeah, I know. So I want to go back to,
but I think if it was, because Josh was saying like, well, it's so hard to have a conversation when you're parked next to the drums, or you're parked across from a dude with a 150-watt tube amp, but because he only like has somebody playing it for 20 seconds at a time, it doesn't ever get caught by like the sound police.
Have you ever listened to any of the videos in the PA or DJ area?
No.
Oh, it's awful. It is so awful. It's absolutely unlistenable content. I can't listen to the Premier Guitar stuff. I can't watch it.
Yeah, I've never tried.
So going back, Andrew, too many guitars in the market. He talked about that towards the end of the video. I actually wrote the numbers down because I was curious. So he's talking about Q1, Q2, again, business speak a little bit. So basically January through June. From 2018 to 2020, pre-pandemic, they I think this was importing guitars. I don't think this was just guitar sales in general, but don't quote me. Could be total guitar sales. Either way, the numbers are going to track. They're going to illustrate the point.
Right.
So for 18 to 20, those 3 years, in the first 2 quarters, averaged 1.2 million guitars a year being sold or imported.
Right.
And from 21 to 23, even with as down as it's been the first 2 quarters of 23, 1.8 million guitars a year. The increased guitar sales or movement or orders by 33%. That's such a massive increase. And now we are seeing a glut of guitars on the market and they're not moving.
I think that also is I was a little confused at the Fender thing. I kind of looked at, so this is a tie-in. So Sassy says real quick, I think some of it could be people finally going back out, but I know Ryan's seeing this number drop. It seems like very recently. And I mean, I think for a lot of the country, COVID restrictions were lifted a while ago. And Jane says, there are always the people who will just always watch,
and that's great. So, and don't get me wrong, I've got a bunch of listeners who they listen even when they don't care about the guest, you know what I mean? And those are the hardcores. For example, I'll mention Blake and the Tone Mob, right? I do not listen to every episode of the Tone Mob. I love Blake to death. I genuinely do. I chat with him often, but I listen to the guests I'm interested in. So I'm one of those people that's the in between. I'm not the hardcore that's listening to every episode, like some of you crazies that I love all of you. But it is one of those things where there's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of guitars out there. There's so much, and I don't feel like adding like full-fledged Namm coverage is that necessary. I think it's more interesting. Like for example, I'm just gonna because I'm super small time. I go to events like Namm to make connections, to have people on the show.
Right.
That's what I want, because my return for that company is I get, at this point, I'm getting, a week. I don't mind talking about this. I get 1,200 to 1,500 downloads a week, right? And so
is that like your total? That's your total catalog?
Yeah, that's total. Yeah, total catalog. So that's been going up. New episodes are getting about 1,000 a week. It's pretty good.
That's not bad. Yeah,
it's pretty good. It's up from a year ago. So as long as it's growing, I don't care. Actually, as long as it's not going down, I don't care.
Right.
I love doing the show. But that's my return for that company is getting them on the show and getting them to more ears to talk about and tell their stories.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to start figuring this whole Namm puzzle out, because for so long Namm has, everybody thinks of it like a guitar show,
It's
and
not.
it's just not.
It's a small segment. Yeah, and so the whole glut of guitar ordering, guitar sales, that was a thing I was a little, Fender announced, and this is maybe pivoting a little bit. Fender announced that they had to cancel, what was it, $100 million in sales or something.
I can't remember the number now. It was like 600,000 guitars.
Yeah, and 200,000 amps, I think is what they said the equivalent was. So 800,000 total units. I was kind of confused about some of that because the question that I have, and it was a little unclear. Some of them are certainly existing orders. I know they are telling their overseas factories to hold shipment.
Oof.
For some of that. But and their overseas suppliers. But then I also wonder how much of that is because they said it happened in 2022, but I'm a little unclear if that is like all 2022 sales, or if that is like including future sales. So what I mean by that is obviously I think everybody over ordered. I mean, kind of in like all industries, right? Like my industry, biotech, we use what's called cell culture media, right? It's this liquid that we use to grow cells. It's a thing that we need.
Listeners, this is where we just nod.
Yeah. The point is it's a key component of my industry and everybody uses it. And during COVID, we started ordering like insane amounts of it, tried to make these big projections. Biotech from 2020 through, the basically from the start of COVID through pretty much the end of 2021. The end of 2021 like was booming. All these companies were just obviously making money hand over fist.
Yeah.
By the end of 2022, we started to see massive layoffs in the tech industry and the biotech industries because all of these companies, including mine, overexpanded during COVID because we all acted like this was going to last forever. And it's the same thing with the guitar business. Like Fender was acting like this was going to last forever. They sold, potentially oversold, and now all their retailers are like, "Yeah, we're out." And it does, and it does also, I think, kind of beg the question of whether or not, whether or not there's something in the contract that says like if it's a future casting, I don't know.
Yeah.
That where say Guitar Center can say, hey, yeah, we ordered $1 million worth of guitars, probably $10 million worth of guitars for 2024. But here at the end of 2022, we're already seeing sales are down. So we want to cancel our 2024 order. Now, does that mean that Fender's just out that money, or does that mean that they will have another round of negotiation at some point later where Guitar Center says like, okay, what we can do is 5 million. So they're going to get some of that back. I'm just making up numbers, but so I don't know how much Guitar Center really spends on guitars, but that's a question that I had. Is the $100 million just straight up lost, or were those,
or can it be recouped at a later time?
Is that a cancellation of future sales that will be later that renegotiated at some point? I don't know.
I feel like
anybody know? I don't know.
I think what's going to happen, I think it's got to be. I think you've got to consider it a loss, and I'll do the outlay of future purchasing again. Very minimal, MBA experience here, but so they've lost it now, expected to recoup it, but what they're going to recoup it in is future orders, which would have been ordered anyway. So they're filling inventory space in these shops that would have been filled anyway if things had continued to sell at the rate they were. So that's a loss. That's just pure loss. They'll never recoup it.
Yeah. Mark says, Steve the scientist, I'm just making numbers. That's called hypothesizing.
Theories. It's all about theories. Remember, science is a practice.
Do you have, well, I'm going to do this again. Yeah, Andrew Collins says it's a loss. They laid off 300 people.
Yeah.
Entire shift. Was that in 2022? It's so, and I know there were some arguments that possibly those 300 people were the reason that their guitars were so bad during that time. I don't know.
Yeah. Who knows? I'm not saying it is. That might guess is not, yeah, but
there's some problems there. Copel says more money, more problems. That's true, but we'll take it. I don't know if you have any set topics. I'm going to post the link again if anyone wants to jump in. I'm thinking concise. Come in, ask your question.
30 seconds. That's all you get.
We'll answer it, and then we're gonna keep this train moving.
Yeah, y'all, we love hearing from you, but in the past, when we just let everybody on, it got chaotic.
Yeah, and that's a Ryan thing. You got to convince Ryan to live stream more, where he just has the party line.
And those are fun. Don't get me wrong, but that's not what these are.
10 people on there. I think that's what we're gonna do for the 500th episode.
Ooh,
yes, we're just gonna do big.
I've got
big
my
pod.
100th episode coming up. I haven't planned anything.
Hey, Snarky, I can't put you on the camera like that, dude.
Like what?
All right.
What?
You can't smoke on YouTube, man.
Since when?
Since forever.
Yeah, they don't like it.
All right.
How you doing?
Well, I was doing better before you told me I couldn't smoke. But I wanted to let
Sassy says Mo double. Thanks, Sassy.
Yeah, now I'm all discombobulated. I wanted to let not Steve know, but the other guy know.
The other Philip.
Getting your name. I'm bad about it.
40 or Philip.
But when I was talking about idiots, I wasn't referring to you, dude.
No, I knew you weren't. I knew you weren't, Snarky. You're good.
Yeah, we was talking about Ryan.
I did. No. No, 100% no.
All right. Well, anyway, it's a good touch base with you guys, Steve. You and I talk all the time.
Yeah.
You spend way too much time with fools. But we have a good time doing it. And I think you guys are doing a great job. I always enjoy these live streams. No cigarettes. I suppose smoking weed's out of the question too.
I assumed, honestly, I assumed you were smoking weed. So maybe smoking cigarettes is fine. I don't know. But I know that people have gotten videos removed for things that are still considered nationally illicit substances.
Yes.
Even if they aren't, even if they are in my locality.
Cool,
well, actually, in my ultimate locality, weed is not necessary. Is like complicated. It's a complicated subject.
Yeah.
The city I live in, even though California weed is legal, in my city, both growing is highly regulated and dispensing is there are no dispensaries in my city.
Oh, really?
I have to drive. Yeah. I mean, the nearest dispensary is like 6 miles, but
I live in a red county. In the city I live in, they won't allow any of that. However, we can grow our own. Like me and my dad, we've got a garden of weed that we grow each year. So we grow our own and make, wonderful cookies and all kinds of good stuff with it. And but yeah, I understand what you're saying with it. Even if it's legal in the state, they leave the responsibility of it to the county governments, whether they're going to let it fly or not.
Yep.
Which I think is kind of BS, but who am I? I'm just an old man.
All right, Mark says, how's this related to Namm? So let's make this related to Namm. Do you have any interest in hanging out with 130,000 people?
I would not go to Namm. That's how this is related to Namm. Okay, so I've said my piece.
All right, thanks for dropping in.
All right,
hey, no problem, man. And you and I will speak later.
Yep.
Unless you ignore me.
All right, I'll catch you later.
All right, peace out, everybody.
Yep.
Later.
We got a couple more super chats. Michael Freer, thanks. We are, I think, having a good one. I hope.
Yeah.
And Robert McDowell, thanks. Thanks a lot.
Robert, thank you.
Somebody,
Robert, by the way, in that you would have done it on my channel too. We need to fix that. I don't have enough subscribers.
Oh, I didn't know there was a subscriber
there's
limit.
a subscriber limit. Just because my channel has been very slow growing. The real problem with my channel is that it's hour-long interviews for the most part, and I don't have enough time to make the shorter content that I need. So I'm going to be working on that. But thank you, Robert. Actually, Steve and I never talked about how to handle super chats during these live streams. So.
Well, the way that they've been handled in the past is Ryan takes all the money.
Oh, so we're just working for Ryan at this point for free.
Michael Kraus says Namm sounds like something we want to be invited to, but not go to. I do wonder, like somebody mentioned before, that they went to a sports, hunting, outdoor, and whatever T was, I forget what the T was, but it was called like a shot trade show. And that they went one time and they were like, I'm never going. Like, that's all I just wanted to go once.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's like, I think that fits in more with the stories I've heard around Nashville. Like folks who went to the Summer Namm, it was like a more open experience of a trade show.
Yeah.
Of a little more of a sense of convention because it's smaller.
Just based on my experience in Nashville, I think I'd like to see. I think I would really enjoy like a full-fledged Nashville show, not the 2021 one that was weird
for sure
coming out of COVID. But I feel like the full-fledged Summer Namm Nashville experience would be way more my speed.
I've been the 2022 show. I was described at. I had people describe that as Super Summer Namm. I think there was only like maybe 70,000 people in Anaheim, and it felt small.
Yeah.
But again, like that was the first Namm I went to where I didn't lose my voice after the first 36 hours.
That would be nice. That'd be very nice.
So, it's, that's the pros and cons. I guess we're going to pivot off of Namm a bit. If folks have any questions in the chat, I know you said you were going to do some prep work for some other topics. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I tried. I failed.
You tried and failed.
Well, it's there's not. So we're in a slow period. I mean, we could talk about the decline in sales. We could talk about Namm more. I think we're at a point where there's. Oh well, I do have. So I went to Fretboard Summit.
Oh yeah. Let's talk about that.
So Fretboard Summit was kind of amazing. Blake, do you follow the Smoky? I'm confused. Who's Blake? What? Where's Blake? So they Fretboard Summit Chicago went up there for it's Fretboard Journal's big gathering.
The Tennessee Smokies.
Oh yeah.
They play in Kodak, Tennessee, wherever the hell that is.
I don't. I follow the Mississippi Braves though. Yeah, it's okay. Michael's calling me Blake. It's fine.
So sorry, Fretboard Summit. Let's talk Fretboard Summit.
So that was a super rad experience. Highly recommend if you're into it. It is mostly an acoustic guitar event. Gonna put that out there. Although they've grown the number of electric manufacturers and stuff like that happen up there. Josh was there. Josh hosted an event. Emily was a judge for the Germanium Fuzz build off between Heather Brown and Robert Keeley, and it was a blast. And I think events like that are more what the average guitar player wants.
I think that's an interesting point that I've seen, bro. I've thought about this, and I've seen other people talk about this. Is everybody says like, oh, I want to go to Namm. Oh, I want to go to Namm.
They don't.
Then go to Fretboard Summit.
Yeah.
Go to the Dallas International Guitar Show. Like the shows, like there are shows that I mean, I'm looking at the list of people at Fretboard Summit that I know. Baronet Guitars, that's a cool hang. Black Bobbin is coming up. Bourgeois Guitars.
Oh man, Shelby from Black Bobbin was fun to hang out with and chat with.
Callings. So I apparently, we are missing some of the ones that maybe you want to see. Grez is there. Husson Dalton, JHS pedal. Hey, JHS went to Fretboard Summit. They're not going to Namm. They went to
Zachary Vex was there.
Oh, wow.
Like Zachary himself, not the company.
Right,
Zachary was there.
Martin's there. Megan Wells guitars. Mojo Tone. Motander's there. Motanders usually, if they display at NAMM, they're in like the high-end booth. Like there's companies that aren't here that come to NAMM, like Cower, but for Cower, NAMM is convenient. He's in Sacramento.
Right.
So this is, like you said, Shure is there. Like this is Rode microphones. This is a mini NAMM. And like you said, Zvex is there. Yamaha, Widman Custom. I'm sure if I went to look at the list of who goes to the Dallas guitar, like I'm actually pushing Ryan, and this is a ways off on the idea of skipping NAMM in 2025.
Oh,
and replacing one of those and replacing that expense with something like Dallas.
yeah.
Or
So
potentially 2025 again, just floating it. You and I and a couple other people have talked about just doing a a Nashville creators meetup.
I think that's the way to go.
Maybe that's the way to go. We'd probably need to figure out a way to schedule some things with some stores and whatnot over there. But
so
that could be a thing.
Here's the 2022 exhibitors for Dallas International Guitar Festival, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me that this isn't where you'd rather go than NAMM. As a guitar player, not as someone in the industry or as an influencer or a YouTuber or a podcaster, but as someone who just plays guitar and wants to see it and hang out and talk to other guitarists. Exhibitors. I am not about to list all of them. Ernie Ball, Chicago Music Exchange, Category 5 Amps, Cream City Music, Delaney Guitars. I'm scrolling down and trying to make sure I pick up all the big names. Eventide is there at Dallas Guitar Show. You've got let's see, scrolling. It's a very long Guitar Center has multiple booths at Dallas Guitar Show. Guitar House of Tulsa. Because this is a place that's meant to sell guitars. Heritage Guitars is there. Hughes and Kettner is there. If you're really into Hughes and Kettner, I've had a few of their products over the years. I'm going down real quick, so I'm obviously missing some, but Mojo Tone is there. You've got Premier Martial Arts of Dallas. That's a weird one. Sorry, that has nothing to do. Reverend Guitars there. Rumble Seat from Nashville, they're there. School of Rock is there. Six Gun Music, that's a big shop. So you've got all these booths with the major vendors, TKL cases. You can actually buy and see and talk with other people. And that's before you even talk about the fact that it's an actual like music festival on top of that.
Yeah, so I'm looking at that list. Eric Johnson, Orianthi, and Philip Sace headlining. And you go back through the Greg Koch, Ariel Posen, Larry Mitchell. I'm just grabbing names off the list that I recognize. Arthur Menenzies. Who else is on here? Jesse Spradlin. I don't know why I know that name, but it sticks out to me. So, and that's just a very, very quick grab going through that list.
Sonny Landreth, Allie Venables there. I'm trying to pull a few that maybe you don't know because they're in the blues or that area. Mark Lettieri's there. Red Volkert is there. I mean, it's an incredible show.
Yeah.
That I think does the thing a lot of the average player wants NAMM to be.
Yeah. If you want to see live music that's actually an interesting thought, is like, if you want to see live music at NAMM, you have to typically go off site. They do have like this big Yamaha stage that does kind of like concerts all throughout, but it's a lot more limited than the scope of what I'm looking at for the Dallas show. Also, now that I see that Reverend's got their labeling all over everything, now I know why Reverend was pitching on me and Ryan that we should be going to this thing.
Well, isn't Reverend based in Texas?
I don't know.
Yeah, I was looking at the bottom of their website to look at their sponsors page. Here's some sponsors: Vintage Guitar Magazine, Heritage Auctions, Cat 5, Reverend Guitars, Carter Vintage Music, Chicago Music Exchange, Ernie Ball, Mojo Tone. I mean, it is what people want out of the average player wants out of NAMM.
Yeah. Robert asks, is there any plans for another guitar house in the future? I don't. Is anything concrete right now? I think the answer is no, in terms of actual concrete things. But I know we've started talking about and doing some very basic planning for Guitar House in 2024. So if NAMM, since NAMM is now in January, we'd be probably doing Guitar House either in like April, May, or at the end of summer, because presumably, we will also be doing Gear Fest again in June. That's I guess a big assumption. Sweetwater could tell us that they're tired of our shit,
or that they don't want to do it anymore entirely.
Yeah. And Robert wants to know if you would come if you were invited.
If I were invited, I would absolutely go. That would be a blast.
I know. Well, you're going to need to get some more demos up. I think that's the criteria.
Oh, well then.
You could just come and interview everybody. I don't know.
That's valid. I think
that would be good. That would be good I mean, so it is a whole thing where Ryan's kind of taken the Henning model, where when you look at who went to Gear Street over the years, there's always one or two creators at Gear Street who have like less than like 2,000 subs, I would say.
Yeah.
And it's because Henning values the work. And so if you have a good personality on your channel and you are consistent, you're uploading once a week or once every other week or whatever, but it's consistent. It's not just random.
Right. Not you put out a video, there's 4 months that pass, then you put out 3 videos, and then 5 months pass, and
their gear demos. Like there are channels that are bigger that no longer get invited to those types of events because they've kind of pivoted out of being gear demo channels,
right?
That don't do it. But those are kind of the things that he values, like in terms of that. And it's a tough environment because even with everything set up, cameras, and even when you say like, hey, all you got to do is show up with an external solid state drive and an SD card or whatever, it's still a really tough environment to work in when like maybe with cameras are cameras, but to some extent. But if you're used to running Nikon for everything and all of a sudden you've got to use Canons or vice versa or Sony's or whatever other brand, then that's what it is, or GoPros, or you record everything on your phone. Who knows? Sassy's out. See ya, Sassy.
Later.
Apparently the Lions game is tied. That's the update we've gotten. Mark DeBrune asks, any views on Yamaha solid state amps, specifically the G50? They're really cheap secondhand. I don't know if the Paul Rivera thing is true. I will say the Yamaha G series, the ones that I've played, which I think is mostly G100s, have been good. That being said, I have a busted G100 in my garage. I was going to try to fix it if it was an easy fix. It was not an easy fix, so it remains unfixed.
Oh, sure.
But I had somebody suggested somewhere, like if I could find a similar chassis to like another amp that would fit in there. I'm sure the Yamaha speakers are fine. Now that amp might be full of Black Widows now, which is a different problem. But
that's fixable though. That's fixable.
But yeah, and some of the G series has a parametric EQ, which is an interesting addition that I don't necessarily love, but that's because I'm simple. Mm-hmm. Am I lazy or just simple? I don't know.
They could, yeah, it's fine. Either way, it's fine.
But now in hindsight, I guess the thing that I haven't tried to do with that amp is replace all of the fuses. I just turned it on and it powers on, but it doesn't pass sound. So, maybe if I ever get my garage cleaned out, I can actually take it apart and spend more than an hour staring at the guts, trying to see what could possibly be wrong, and then come to a solution. But
I
future
played one of
plans.
those. I played one of those G series amps for a while when I was first learning guitar. And so what that means is my only things I can tell you about it is that it worked. Because I didn't know what I was doing. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, when I was first learning guitar, and even for the first couple of years into playing, I didn't know what I was doing. Because if I knew what I was doing, I would have never sold the Fender Bandmaster Reverb that was my first ever tube amp. I would have never sold it. So,
yeah, my experience with this amp was actually comparing it to a Fender Bassman 10, I think. Yeah, the Bassman 10, the 2-channel 4x something or other, 4x10 silver face combo.
Sure.
David Kiker says probably a cold solder joint somewhere. That's my thought as well. I'm just like, it's a solid state amp with a lot of parts. There's a lot of, there's probably some obvious culprit joints, jacks, output jacks, input jacks, things like that. But
I would
if it's
start
not
by
any of
looking at
those,
the very first thing that I've discovered twice in solid state amps was the problem was the lead from the circuit going to the output jack to the speaker. That was it was just old, and it was unsoldered from jostling around for years.
Yeah. It was actually, that amp was given to me by a friend of mine, and he was basically like, if you can fix it, you can keep it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, okay. Well, that was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, you haven't fixed it. You should have given it back.
I know. No, if I tried to give it back to him, like, it would have been not great, not the best. But yeah, so that's that. Blown speaker. The one that I have, I think, is a 2x12. So I don't think it's a blown speaker, but I guess that is something I could test. I do have a couple of speaker cabinets, so I could rig it up a little differently and try to test that.
So, what about you, Steve? You come up with anything else to talk about?
Oh, I didn't even look up anything.
Didn't even look. Look at that.
I'm looking at this Bassman 10 now, though. Good grief. How much do they want for this? This was $1,600.
What?
Oh, it's in the UK.
Oh, okay. I'm about to say, don't you dare pay that much money for a Bassman 10. I can get you one locally for like way cheaper.
Here's one for a local pickup. A lot of these are, of course, are local pickups.
Yeah, nobody wants to ship that
because they weigh 1,000 pounds. Is anybody actually shipping these? And that's not a Bassman 10. That's a Bassman with a 4x10.
Well, that's what the Bassman 10 is. It's a 4x10.
No, but it was like a 59 Bassman.
But
because I'm just searching for Bassman 10, it's picking
I got
up.
you. Well, here's one in Los Angeles for $775. Let's go low to high. Let's see what I see.
Oh, here's one in Chicago for $770. I just wanted to. So
here's one in North Carolina for $450.
Oh, good grief! I kind of just wanted to show what we're talking about here, which is this one. It's this amp.
Yep.
I played this amp. I knew a guy who had a Bassman 10 and that Yamaha G100 and I think 1977, 70, I want to say 78 Stratocaster.
Okay.
So that was my first, I think that was my first experience. One of my few experiences actually playing like a true, well, at the time it wasn't vintage. And actually it was an interesting experience because at the time, because this is probably like 2003, 2002, 2003, somewhere in there when like the Fender 70 stuff really had a rep for being garbage.
Yep.
And I would thought that was like to that point, and for a long time afterwards, like that was definitely the best sounding Stratocaster I've played.
Oh, that's good.
Was it the best? playing, I think my Japanese Stratocaster plays better than that, but it's a completely different.
I played a 70s
guitar.
Strat that was 12.5 pounds.
Oh yeah, I don't remember how much this one weighed.
There's no part of me that wants to play a 12.5 pound. Actually, I did a thing yesterday. I know Ryan's done it before. I had a completely manic ADHD moment and decided to get out our kitchen scale, our food scale.
Oh
and
yeah,
weigh every one of my guitars.
How do you go about making them stand?
I don't. If you lay them down at the fulcrum point on the guitar, it gets the full weight. So I lay them on their back, so it's a flat scale. I'm going to use my
So
phone as an
basically, the
example.
joint is probably most typically a fulcrum.
Yeah, exactly. Right there at the neck joint. You have to shift a little way one way or the other depending on the guitar. But yeah, just measure it that way. And so I measured every guitar I own, and so I am very proud to say I have no guitars over 10 pounds. I don't have a 10-pound guitar. I have a couple close.
I wouldn't be surprised if my Telecaster is over.
But my heaviest guitar I own, not counting, I didn't weigh my full metal bodied resonator because that would have just been ludicrous. But the heaviest guitar I own is my Rascal bass, my Squier Rascal bass.
Yeah, I mean basses are always.
Yeah, but it's heavier than both of my other basses by over a pound. It's like 9 pounds, 8 ounces, something like that.
Yeah. Robert McDowell asks a good question. I think here's a question for both of you. When you see something you like on any of these sales sites like OfferUp and such, do you always offer less than advertised? If so, by how much? I think we might have different answers on this.
Oh yeah, because I have two answers.
Okay.
So Robert, I may need I'm just going to give you both. So it depends. Actually, I may have 3. Okay. 3 answers, all depending on, do I actually want this as something to play and keep? Do I want this because I think there's a flip opportunity? I feel like this is classic 60 cycle hum answering too. So we're throwing it back to like 4 years ago when you guys actually really talked about flipping stuff. And number 3, am I being sarcastic?
What?
Yeah, so I've got multiple answers for this. So the first one, if it is something I actually want and something I actually will play, I will probably try 20% off is usually my cutoff at that point. Where I'm like, if it's already a decent deal, I may not even ask that much off. But I'll usually typically try to get 20% off and then come up from there if they're not willing to move. If it's something that I want to flip, I will ask for 40% off of whatever they're asking. And I don't think twice about it. I don't feel bad about it. If it's something I think there's some flip potential, especially if it's something I've been watching and it's been on the market for a while.
Right.
And I think, hey, if I came in with anything, they might be willing to take it. This works on Reverb more often than you would think it does to offer, because I can't quite go 40% off because 64% of value is the cutoff for their automatic lowball rejection. So I go 36% off for that. I actually open up the calculator and I offer to the dollar that cutoff point to see if they'll take it.
Right.
I will also do that sarcastically on Reverb if somebody's asking an absolutely ridiculous price for something. Just out of pure curiosity, and occasionally I'll offer it on used stuff where they're asking something absolutely dumb, and I'll offer them like 40 or 50% of what they're asking, just to be an ass, if I'm honest.
What if they accept?
If they accept, I buy it and resell it because they obviously don't know what they're doing. Half the time it's things with bad pictures, or they've listed it in a place that it's never going to sell, or you know what I mean? You see what I'm saying? Or they haven't listed it in enough places. So I can usually turn that into profit, into money.
For me, it really depends on, I mean, some of what you're saying is right. Like, is this a good deal? Is this a thing that like I think there's flip potential on? Is this a thing? You know, those are questions. I think for me, I'm not an always haggle. If it's something that I want and I can like look at the pictures, like, so back in the day, like if I saw a Strat for 300 and I thought like, well, I don't want to own that. I just want to sell it, and if I can get it down to like 250, then I can. And the picture again, pictures are bad. The guitar's dirty. Use that to your advantage. You say, and you know what, the guitar looks a little beat up. Will you take 250? Knowing like that's just all finger schmuck. Like I can take a credit card to that thing and get this move this from looking being in good condition to being in near mint condition pretty easily. Then I try to knock that off. But if it's something, particularly if it's something that like I might want to own for a long time, and if the price is right, I actually often don't haggle because my area, well, and like San Diego had a history of being so fast, and maybe if it's different, Michael Kraus says if it's a deal, I don't haggle. That's where I'm at. So the Gibson, I don't have it anymore because I sold it, but the Gibson bass that I owned, I don't think I haggled on that. Maybe I did. I might have haggled that one down a little. My Les Paul, I bought that for $550. I did not haggle on that. I think at the time those were probably going. I had trouble tracking down what they were going for at the time, but I think 550 or whatever was probably the low end of what a good price on it is. Of course, now looking at Reverb, it looks like the cheapest one in general is $715.
There you
go. So if you sort low to high, $715, and that one's got some weird. Oh, it's got the pickups replaced. I mean, mine has the pickups replaced. But and my color is like you don't necessarily really find that yellow too often, the amber burst. But the price range on these is stupid. Like the $715 is the lowest priced one. It's got $185 price drop on it. I can't tell why, but the finish looks like it's maybe been. Again, this goes back to photos. The finish looks stripped.
But see, bad photos. I mean, you may or may not have a podcast or basically built on finding listings that are not great.
Yeah,
they don't know what they're doing.
It looks like somebody tried to like turn this into like a custom. I can't tell what's original and what's not on this. It's got a Gibson custom art sticker on the back, but I don't think that's original.
So I will
anyway. The point being, like, and Michael Kraus like also points out, like Squire 51 for $25.
Right.
You're not going to offer. You can't push that because you're going to lose it.
I'll say like things like OfferUp aren't really a thing here. It exists. Don't get me wrong, but for the most part, everybody's too spread out, right?
Right.
But I'm in that same boat. There's occasionally deals where I'm like, I'm not haggling. I'm figuring out how fast I can get to you. Because so when I went to Chicago for Fretboard Summit, I had put money away. I was fully prepared to buy an Ampeg B15 while I was in Chicago because I've always wanted one. I want one bad. So I knew that Chicago or Rock and Roll Vintage Music in Chicago had several last time I was there. So I was ready to go. I had squirreled away about $1,500 and was ready to be like, I can put $300 or $400 on a credit card if I really need to. Right. Not a proponent of putting things going into debt for gear, but that's where I was. I really wanted one. And when I got there and they had 3 of them and all of them were $2,400 or more. So they've gone up since the last time I looked for one. Right. And so I was like, okay, I'm not getting any of these. Obviously I was not ready to spend that much more.
Yeah.
Well, I got back home and was having this conversation with someone and got a wild hair and looked on Facebook to see if anybody had a Ampeg B15. You can actually see it behind me. Somebody had one, and that's a 1974. It's been serviced. It is mint. Original speaker.
Oh, wow.
There's not a marring on the Tolex on it. So what happened is, I'll give you the story, then I'll tell you the price. So this gentleman bought it brand new in 1974. He was a bassist with a bunch of jazz bands in the Mobile, Alabama area. He bought it and kept it in his studio for rehearsals and recording since the day he bought it. It did not see sunshine again until he passed, and the family sent it to this guy to be repaired to be sold.
Oh, wow.
And so the family, so the guy I bought it from actually repairs like old hi-fi equipment, like Macintosh stuff and, really expensive vintage hi-fi gear. And the guy who owned this amp also was a big into hi-fi, but a lot of it needed servicing. So they actually gave the guy this amp as payment for servicing all the gear and getting all the other stuff up and running. I paid $750 for a 1974 Ampeg B15. I did not haggle. I told him I want it and I'm on my way. It was a 4-hour drive to go get it.
Yeah, and that's always tough too. Like when you do find a really good deal like that, you just hope that no one else is on them.
Right. He said his phone blew up.
Michael Krause says that he got a JC77 with 2 PV keyboard amps and a first act for $200. Would you have made an offer on that?
Probably not. I probably would have just bought that. I will tell you that the Jazz Chorus is the most expensive cheap amp if you buy it new ever. I love Jazz Choruses. I had a JC 120 for a while that I bought with an Ampeg Reverber Rocket 2 for $250 for both of them.
Oh wow.
So people get rid of them super low ball. So it's really hard to gauge what's a good deal on a Jazz Chorus. I think I would have just bought that at $200. I would have been, you can double your money there if you're
he does admit that it has scratchy pots.
Oh,
so.
I'm not worried about that. I love when stuff has scratchy pots because then I can make a better offer.
Yeah. I just learned that you can get scratchy pots cleaned ultrasonically. No idea where or for how much. That, I mean,
I've never heard of that.
I can see how that would work. I feel like you would have to probably take it apart to do it. But I'm thinking about like one of the labs I worked in had a sonicator. It's just a water bath that vibrates. So you put in like whatever your cleaning solution is, usually something like a hydroxide or like an ethanol or some kind of alcohol. And then the whole thing, like you put your thing in there and it just goes like beep, and then it cleans shit. So it's a good way of cleaning metal. But I imagine you'd have to take it apart. I don't know that. I mean, maybe there is a device now where you could like sonicate your entire thing, but I would be concerned that the rest of the amp would fall apart.
Yeah, this is way outside my wheelhouse. Look, there's a Stumac $25 pot cleaning cap. It's a little expensive. You can look at Amazon and see if there's an alternative, but it's literally a cap that you put over pots from the outside, not on the inside. On the outside, and you spray into that, and it makes sure all of it goes down into the pot.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So just buy that, and you buy it once, and you're done. And you can use that for I use it for semi-hollow guitars where I can't get to the back of the pots. So.
Father Jordan says, I just placed my scratchy pots between my 2 Prince's rig and blast spin doctors at unsafe levels. That sounds like a good idea.
I saw the Spin Doctors live once, and all the guitar was definitely at unsafe levels.
Robert McDowell, I remember seeing this video, this Super 1963 Super Royal Reverb. He got it for $1,000. Those things can go for some good money. Michael Krause wants to know if the sonic screwdriver is real. Maybe.
I mean, maybe it depends on if you want to be very strict about the definition.
Mine has been doing the same calculation for the last 400 years. So,
Dr. Who humor that I don't get. It's okay.
We got I only know that because I saw it in like a video that I saw very recently. And Ian says there is stuff for PCBs. You can get stuff for PCBs and ultrasonic cleaners. The retro computer guys use it. We are just up against the 2-hour mark.
Yeah, we are.
So
that's the most I've ever talked about Namm Even going to Namm, that's the most I ever talked
I
about
don't
Namm.
think I ever want to talk about Namm until I don't know. I really enjoy I really enjoy Namm. I enjoy, but the reality is I probably shouldn't be allowed to go to Namm. I could probably I can make a little bit of an argument. I'm certainly not a 5Xer, but I can make an argument that
But you are.
I run I run a tight enough ship that if we need to get in contact with somebody, I work as a contact point for the channel. But we also, again, we don't really do contact blitzing
right
at Namm anymore. So
yeah,
and Mark says we should, so maybe we should.
mine. What I do is I just take around my business card, introduce myself, make sure people know who I am. I find it helps when I do contact them later and say, "Hey, come on the show." They actually remember who I was.
Robert says I drink too much of their coffee. That's
the problem.
That's fair.
Speaking of coffee, I need coffee.
All right. Well, let's call this a show then, huh?
I think so. It's been good, Steve.
Yeah. Thanks to everyone. This was chaotic. I probably didn't make the points I wanted to make, but that's about Namm. But again, it's whatever.
I love how you say it's chaotic. I think it's the most put together stream we've done so far.
Again, like my big takeaways is, you mentioned the membership thing. I think if the single Namm show got down to a tight 50K, it would be there would be more incentive for manufacturers to come back.
Yeah, I think so. I
think at the size of the 2020, I think was over 130,000. I may have been over 140. That's really tough. It's really loud. I think there's things. I don't think the creator/influencer thing they want to do. I think they have to be really careful with that.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, you have so many moving parts, and is it as a creator, as a creator space, I don't want to haul stuff to a room, say, oh yeah, my cameras are over there. I don't want to leave that in there. I don't know when we do that at Gear Fest, it makes sense because we know over half of the other creators there. We know their reputation. If somebody says hey, so-and-so was messing around with your stuff, we know who to go to. But the flip side of that is, at Namm, if there's 50,000 people, say it gets down to 50,000 people, but there's 1,000 creators there.
Right.
I'm still only going to know 30 of those people. At GearFest, knowing 30 of the people at GearFest means 80% of the people there. Jordan does, and I would say this too. Jordan says, last thoughts, I have a tiny one-man operation selling music and adjacent crap. This is Jordan from Our Lady of Static, who made the pedal chain most recently. Says, I'd love to go to Namm, but it's so friggin' expensive, I can't even consider it. I don't know if this would work for you. I really think what Delicious Audio does with the pedal deli is a really great way for a lot of brands to get their first foot in the door. I don't know how much it costs, but if you head on over to Delicious Audio, I shouldn't say Delicious Audio is the only place you should look, but I think partnering with other brands is the way to go. I know Justice, who's often on the live streams, partnered with, I forget what brand it was last year, to get Fuzzimp into the Namm show, and he was just in a shared space. So that's always an option if you can't go direct. The tough thing is you want to go too, and now that's the added expense. And I think it was Andrew Collins mentioned earlier is hotels, food, travel. That stuff all adds up. I have known a lot of folks who they treat it as their big annual vacation. So they do Namm if it was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They're on the floor Thursday, they're at Disneyland Friday, and they're back on the floor Saturday. Or they're on the floor Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday they're at Disneyland, Monday they're flying back or whatever. So there's options there. And like I said, Jordan, I don't know who all you feel like you have tight connections with that are on the manufacturer side that might have a booth that could be a good way to get some of your stuff in there just to kind of have on the side, and maybe that will drum up business. Maybe, I don't know how well booth splitting works if you're not actively demoing your own stuff.
I think it's worked well in the past. I've talked to some people who, especially, you see a lot of pairing in guitar and amp builders.
Yeah.
Some amp
Grez and Benson last year.
Exactly.
Grez, Benson, and LA Vintage all in the same booth. So even though LA Vintage and Grez are both guitar builders, they're working in the same space. They're not really competitors. They make very different guitars.
And it's very symbiotic, very relationship built.
Yeah.
Like, for example, and the traveling, I already know. So my plan is to go in January. I haven't fully booked it yet. I actually opened it up today to see if Namm would let me with my account, like buy it, like membership. Yes, I can buy. Luckily, I have a pre-existing. I actually feel bad if they start doing this cutting back for anyone new to the influencer or demo. I think it's going to be a little tougher to get in the door. Luckily, I have that pre-existing relationship from going in 21. But so I already know that I'm going to be reaching out to the people I know to see if anybody wants to split an Airbnb or, split the Ubers, because those are real expensive in Anaheim and compared to, Nashville or here. So that's the trick. I think finding those relationships, people you can just kind of piggyback with and do some stuff.
Yep. All right. Well, I think that's it for us. So thanks for hanging out. We had a pretty good crowd this morning, 50 to 60 for most of it. So
hey, that's up. That's progress.
Yeah. So thanks for the hangs, and we'll see y'all next month.
Later.
Stay grounded. And I click.